Hello friends, welcome to my channel, and today we will be talking about wind movements and air circulation. So air circulation or atmospheric circulation is the large scale movement of air and means through which the thermal energy or the heat energy is distributed on the surface of the earth. Wind system is caused by the uneven heating of the earth by the sun and earth's own rotation. So as the earth is rotating from west to east, the equatorial region receives direct rays of the sun. That is why they are very hot. And if we travel from the equatorial region towards the temperate zone and the frigid zone, that is the polar region towards north and south pole, the temperatures keep on decreasing and becomes extremely cold towards the frigid zone or the polar zone above the Antarctic and Arctic circles. The differential heating and cooling of the Earth's surface leads to the formation of air circulation or wind circulation. As the air warms up, it becomes light and it rises and is taken over by the cool, denser air which is very heavy. The equatorial region, the sun's rays basically heat the land as well as the water bodies, and as a result of which, the air above which becomes very light and it rises high in the atmosphere. So, this air migrates towards the higher latitudes. The tropical region is cooler in comparison to the equatorial region, so that is why the cooler and denser air blows in to take the place and replace the heated, risen air. Therefore, the winds they blow from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure, and thus these winds they blow continuously in the same direction, and they are called as planetary winds. So they blow across the countries as well as the oceans. And there are three types of planetary winds. These winds are trade winds, westerlies, and polar easterlies. Now, generally, the winds flow from the east to west direction as the earth rotates from west to east. And the point where these winds meet is called as the convergence zone. Now, these are the permanent winds that flow throughout the year from one latitude to another latitude, and they are also called as prevailing winds. The Coriolis effect make the wind systems twist anti-clockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere, and they are controlled by the pressure belts. So, over the equatorial region from 10 degrees north and 10 degrees south latitudes, which receives vertical rays of the sun, the land gets heated up very intensely, and as a result of which, the air above which also becomes hot and it rises because they are light winds and they move towards the higher latitudes. And in return, what happens is that because of this low pressure that is generated here, winds from the high pressure zone come towards the low pressure zone. So as you can see in the picture, there's a high pressure belt that is generated between 30 degrees north and south to 40 degrees north and south of the equator. This is the high pressure zone because the temperature is cooler as compared to the equatorial region. So the winds always blow from high pressure zone to a region of low pressure. So that is why the winds from the high pressure subtropical zone will move towards the equatorial low pressure zone. So the convergence zone is the intertropical convergence. These are the tropical easterlies or the trade winds that blows from the 30 degrees and 40 degrees north and south latitudes towards the low pressure system which is generated over the equatorial belt. According to the Ferrell's law, trade winds blow from the northeastern direction in the northern hemisphere and the southeastern direction in the southern hemisphere, and that is why they are called as tropical easterlies. The actual name of ITCZ or Intertropical Convergence Zone is the Doldrums. This is between 0 degrees and 5 degrees north and south of the equator. So, this is a very narrow zone. And doldrums actually means sadness, depression, inactivity, or stagnation. So, there is a story as to how this region got its name as doldrums. Some sailors in 1700s were sailing their boat across the equator. So when they came across this zone of intertropical convergence zone, they basically got stuck. The boats were not shifting any further due to lack of winds. So, therefore, they call this region as the doldrums. The air that flows towards the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere from the equatorial region when it rises, it goes about 30 degrees latitudes. And what happens is that because of the temperate zone, the air gets cooled down and thus they flow back towards the equator. And thus they are called as the trade winds. Now, as these trade winds blow back from the equator, most of them cross the ocean. So the trade winds pick up a lot of moisture and they bring a lot of rainfall and thunderstorms along the coastal regions of various countries which lie in this particular zone. The monsoons in the Indian subcontinent is also caused because of the incoming trade winds which are coming from the Indian Ocean and the Bay of Bengal and picking up a lot of moisture. This brings heavy rainfall and thunderstorms in this region. The next type of prevailing winds are the westerlies, which are blowing from the west to east direction in the middle latitudes between 30 degrees and 60 degrees north and south of the equator. They are basically originated from the high pressure zone. Between latitudes 30 degrees and 60 degrees, we have the subtropical high pressure zone, from where the air is rising and it is subsiding towards the subpolar low region as well as the equatorial low region. It is a high pressure area as the temperature is lower in comparison to the tropical region, and here the winds are actually diverging. Okay, and an anticyclonic condition is created. So the horse latitudes are found around 30 and 35 degrees. Here the region becomes extremely calm and the sailors used to throw away their horses into the sea so that their ships could become lighter and they could sail. But in the mid latitudes between 40s, 50s, and 60 degrees north and south, there we have the strongest winds. They are called as the roaring 40s, furious 50s, as well as the shrieking 60s. So the roaring 40s and 50s cover the tip of South America, Australia, and New Zealand. The westerlies blow from southwest to northeast in the southern hemisphere and northwest to southeast in the southern hemisphere due to the Coriolis effect. Now, they also cause significant rainfall on the continents on the western edges. In these latitudes of 40s and 50s, there are very strong and severe winds. That is why they are called as bold winds. These strong winds proved to be very important to sailors during the age of explorations when the explorers and traders from Europe and Western Asia used the strong winds to reach the spice markets of Southeast Asia and Australia. The westerlies have an enormous impact on the sea currents, especially in the southern hemisphere, driven by the westerlies. The powerful Antarctic circumpolar current rushes around the continent on the west to east coast about 4 kilometers per hour. Another name of the Antarctic circumpolar current is west wind drift and is the largest sea current in the world and is responsible for transporting enormous volumes of cold, nutrient rich water to the sea, creating healthy marine ecosystem and food webs. Then we have the polar easterlies. They are dry, cold prevailing winds that blow from the east. They emanate or originate from the polar high pressure zones of high pressure around north and south pole. They blow towards the low pressure areas in the subpolar regions. The poles are intensively cold, hence, there are areas of permanent high pressure winds. And from this high pressure belt, winds blow towards the 60-degree north and 60-degree south latitudes. Winds always blow from high pressure to low pressure. Another set of winds are the jet streams, which are very high altitude winds. They are geostrophic winds that form near the boundaries of air masses with different temperature and humidity. The rotation of the earth and its uneven heating by the sun also contribute to the formation of high altitude jet streams. These strong, fast winds in the upper atmosphere can blow 480 kilometers per hour. Jet streams blow through a layer of atmosphere called as stratosphere at an altitude of 8 to 14 kilometers above the surface of the earth. There is little turbulence in the stratosphere, which is why the commercial pilots like to fly in this layer. Now, riding with the jet stream saves time and fuel. If they are behind the plane, it pushes it forward, and that is why they are called as tailwinds. Tailwinds can help you to reach your destination more quickly. And if these winds are in front of the plane, it pushes it backwards, and that is why they are called as headwind. And strong headwinds can cause flight delays.